The visitor list for the Iron Bowl is absolutely ridiculous.
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Auburn, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast. I'm your host, Zac Blackerby, and thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. Our recruiting expert, Brian Smith, joins us. And of course, these recruiting segments are brought to you by LinkedIn. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. That's why LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions apply. Brian, we'll get to the full visitor list, and Auburn quarterback Hank Brown will join us to preview the Iron Bowl as well. But first things first, let's talk about the guy that every Auburn fan wants to know more about, and that's Cam Coleman, the Texas A&M five-star wide receiver commit, Central Phoenix City standout. But man, it seems like everything is pointing to him ending up in Auburn's class. What are you hearing about Cam Coleman?
I haven't heard any positive smoke in the last week for Florida State, which he visited recently, and that was what I was curious about. Now, that doesn't mean there isn't something that they're still trying to do to get him there, because they've been in on him and they might be number two. I think It's safe to say he's not going to A&M at this point. I think the entire free world kind of knows that non-secret. Auburn appears to be the leader. They've got all the smoke. He's coming for the visit this weekend, and Ward only knows they need receiver help. So this is a huge visit for Auburn, especially if you put him next to Perry or on opposite sides moving forward. Yeah. Man, that changes everything, but I have not heard anything, and I cover Florida State. I haven't heard anything, so that doesn't make me feel good for what the Noles got going for him.
Yeah, I think when you look at the visits, right, that's the old recruiting verbiage, just follow the visits. He keeps coming back to Auburn, was here this past weekend, and obviously it appears that he will be back in Auburn for the Iron Bowl, which fortunately for the Tigers isn't too far away, but that hasn't really helped them in regards to landing kids from Central Phoenix City before. But once again, tracking the visits, if you base it solely off of that, Auburn's a favorite here.
It's interesting because it's 40 minutes or so from Auburn's campus, give or take. And you're right. Alabama, Georgia, different programs have all snuck in there and gotten kids that Auburn would have loved to have had. Yeah. But if you're going to turn the tide, how about you turn it with a kid that is about as close to a sure bet to end up in the NFL one day as this young man? 6'4", 190, has tremendous catch radius, and the way he changes direction reminds me more of a 5'10" kid, to be really honest. But again, he's 6'3", 6'4". I've shook his hand before. That's a grown man. Right. You know, he's a different kind of dude. And Auburn needs those players if they're going to consistently get back in the race in the SEC year after year.
Yeah, and I think adding Cam Coleman, obviously he's everything you just said, right? I think he's very, very talented in regards to what he brings you as a receiver, big frame, can high point the football. What he did against Auburn High School in the playoffs last week was ridiculous. I mean, it was just play after play after play that I saw on Twitter. But I think it symbolizes some other things. One is it doesn't matter where you are. I think the fact that that Auburn was able to pull this off with Perry Thompson, and then if they're able to pull it off with Cam Coleman, it doesn't matter if you're committed elsewhere. Auburn can flip 5 stars now with Hugh Freeze and everything that they've been able to do so far. The other side of it is you got another Central Phoenix City kid coming in, which is huge. Auburn has been battling those battles for a long time. And also other Central Phoenix City kids that'll be here this weekend, both 2025 guys. But Dalen Upshaw from Central, he's another receiver. And then offensive lineman Mal Waldrop, who he's a 3-star guy, but it seems like this staff likes him as well. I just think it means so much more than landing a really, really talented player. I think it's almost bigger than that.
Well, there's a lot of perception, and people that cover Auburn probably have told you this. You're a fan growing up. You'd like to win with kids that are kind of from your area.
Sure.
It'd be nice. And that area per capita is one of the best in the country. It's sending guys to this thing they call the National Football League. That's kind of important. Yeah. And to lose them out of your backyard, it's just a gut shot. So especially when they're pretty much going to about 3 or 4 teams that you're competitive with, Clemson, Georgia, Alabama, that's not good. So yeah, they're not going to get back to the top without some of the kids at these schools. Yeah. Everybody knows it. So it's huge.
So virtually Auburn's entire class will be there on Saturday, which makes sense. I don't think that's surprising. Right. A handful of them will also be on official visits, which makes sense. I think get everything paid for makes total sense there. But Cam Coleman, obviously, probably the headliner here. But other guys that stood out to me, and I just kind of want your initial thoughts to these guys being on the list expected based off of multiple reports. KJ Bolden, the 5-star defensive back that committed to FSU over Auburn. I think that's pretty telling. And then another one, we'll talk about both these guys together. 5-star defensive back, Zaquan Patterson, who you know pretty well. He's committed to Miami. So these two defensive backs being in Auburn for the Iron Bowl, in your mind, in your guesstimation, what does that mean?
Well, let's start with KJ. I had a conversation with a friend of mine that you know, Mr. John Garcia, recently, and discussing KJ, and we're both like, where's he going to go? Yeah. We haven't heard anything in the last few days, but it's been very quiet. That's unusual for this time of year because he plays at Buford, one of the most tradition-rich programs in all the South, just outside Atlanta. We usually hear stuff about that. We haven't heard anything recently, but that doesn't mean something couldn't change. But again, as you stated earlier, follow the visits. If he is visiting Auburn, there's a reason. And everybody wants to see the Iron Bowl and all that kind of stuff. But if he was truly just done, he wouldn't be going on this visit. So Auburn, at the very least, has a shot. And if I were to guess, based on everything at the end, I think Auburn was second to Florida State originally. Now, that doesn't mean I'm right. I'm just going off everything that, I talked to KJ and everything else that I gathered.
Kind of felt like unofficially what was second, right?
Yeah. So you were in the mix there. And let's be honest, he's a very special talent. I would imagine he knows he can play early at either place. So now it's just about personal feel. And he's a great kid that could fit in about anywhere, but I have no idea. I wouldn't put a wager on that one. But the way Auburn is trending, I mean, nothing would shock me.
Right. I'm there with you. And then another interesting name, Jalewis Solomon, who originally picked Auburn over South Carolina, and then he flipped from Auburn to South Carolina. And now a lot of smoke saying maybe he's interested again. But he's in he's going to be in Auburn this weekend, according to auburnlive.com.
Well, look, I've been around enough to know I've seen a kid commit 7 times before that I knew of. So nothing shocks me.
Yeah.
With that in mind, keep following the visits. Zaquan coming back up. He's been committed to Miami forever. Why is he still visiting? Solomon's made calls to Auburn. There's at least interest. This is how you get it going. I think considering Auburn's situation on the field this year, the biggest selling point for them is we both know that stadium's going to be packed.
Yeah.
That support that they get is very unusual. I can't tell you how much different it is at certain schools. I'll leave them out for just be nice, but certain schools you're not winning, they don't show. Auburn and the entire environment ought to be impressive. I wouldn't be surprised if one of these kids not only ends up at Auburn, but commits not all that long after because it's such a great place to go to school.
Yeah. A guy that's not the highest rated guy that's visiting on Saturday, but one of the guys I'm most excited about, let's discuss in just a moment right here on Locked On Auburn. Today's show is brought to you by our friends at Prize Picks. Prize Picks is daily fantasy made easy. It's the most fun you can possibly have playing daily fantasy sports and winning 25 times your money. All you have to do is go to prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege. Use code LockedOnCollege for a first deposit match up to $100. They also have a very easy to use app. I use the app. When I play Prize Picks, I use the app. But it's just you against the numbers instead of battling against thousands of other players and pros and sharks. You just pick more than or less than 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. If you think a particular receiver is going to catch more than 2.5 footballs a game, take the over. If you think, a guy's going to pick off an interception, sometimes defensive props are there as well. So be sure to give some love and some attention to Prize Picks. Look, if you listen to the show every day, you know your stuff. Head over to prizepicks.com/lockedoncollege and use code LockedOnCollege for a first deposit match up to $100. Brian Smith, Locked On recruiting expert, also recruiting writer at auburndaily.com, hanging out with us. A guy I'm very intrigued with. a guy I am very, very intrigued with, is Favor Edwin.
Oh, you should be.
Big offensive tackle. I think he's going to be an offensive tackle the next level. Eagles Landing, which I believe is a high school program that you've got a lot of respect for, Brian, if I recall correctly. But 6'8", 290. Like, there's just so much to love about this guy. And you see 3-star. And so I think it's really easy as a fan to be like, oh, he's just a 3-star. We're so accustomed to 4 and 5 stars now here at Auburn. But but yeah, I think this guy's so much more than that. I mean, Alabama had a committable offer for this guy. Florida really wanted him. The more I look at this dude, the more I see SEC starter in 2 years.
Well, here's the thing. He's at a program that's always been good, but it's 1A football in Georgia. He gets overlooked a little bit. It's about 30 minutes southeast of Atlanta, but they've won so many state titles, it's ridiculous. And they always have Power 5 kids. They've got guys in the NFL. They've got good coaching. And if you go through that program, you're probably going to get a disciplined kid too. They don't mess around. So Clemson was another school that liked him. They're the pickiest school in the country with offers, and it's not even close.
Sure.
That's another one that was after him. If Auburn gets this kid, and I'm not saying he's going to come in and start, that's ridiculous. I hope not. Freshman starters on the O-line always give me the willies, but he's a kid that could end up being a 2+ year starter for the Tigers. He fits the frame, comes from a great program, and he's got the right offers. The film doesn't lie either. I think he could play right or left. Just kind of have to see how he fills out his frame and where he ends up.
Yeah.
But as you always like to tell me, Brian, we can take more offensive linemen. That's what you always tell me in recruiting. So they need some more in this class too. They need at least 2 more. He would be a great addition. Yeah.
DeAndre Carter is it right now on the offensive line. And so Cohen Eccles, the Texas A&M commit, he will also be here this Saturday. That would be huge. There's no question about it. I mean, it seems like A&M's done a good job with him based just off of what I read. That's no inside information or anything, but just based off of what I've read from several of the folks that cover it. But that would be huge. But yeah, you feel like you need more than DeAndre Carter, but we'll certainly see what happens moving forward there. When you look at the 2024 class, Brian, let's assume Cam Coleman is a part of it. How would you grade it? And are there any other names that you kind of look at and say, hey, they could seal the deal or possibly flip this guy in the weeks leading up to signing day?
Well, I think the guy that you just talked about is one of the most important. It's Eccles, because they need linemen, and he's a kid I think he could play pretty early.
Yeah.
He's from the greater Houston area. He's a ball player. If they can get KJ or if they could get Zaquan, they need a couple more guys that are impact guys. If they do, it's something I've been working on for Auburn Daily, they've got a chance to end up in the top 7 to 10 in the country. When you add 4 and 5 star players, it matters. But we're talking about high-level kids, all top 100 kind of caliber talents.
Yeah.
Auburn has been hot on the trail, and these are kids that can play early. That's why they're ranked so highly. I think they're going to get 4 or 5 more guys. Now, which ones are they? Could be even more, because just as a note, you don't have to sign just 25 anymore. NCAA lifted that rule. I'll be interested to see what Freeze and his staff do with that, because at the end, if a really great player wants to come now, you don't have to tell them no. Come on down.
It's also such a tricky thing, because does Auburn want to take that many? Because I think they're going to have to be pretty active in the portal.
That's what I mean. Brian, it makes it fascinating, right? How do you
so tricky. It's so tricky. And I can't wait, just to kind of go meta here for a second. Like, I can't wait to see how certain teams handle bowl prep. Like, that's going to be pretty wild, because so many guys made it to the portal. So, or do you go through bowl prep and then say, I'm like a week into it, I'm still, they're kind of giving more reps to the guys that they expect to play more next year, and I'm still not really getting a whole lot of reps? I am going to portal. I was on the fence. I'm sold. And it's like, okay, well, you got a bowl week in 10 days. And we were kind of expecting you to play special teams or something, but okay. So I can't wait to see how that unfolds, because I think it's going to be a fascinating thing to look at how teams manage their roster. I can't wait to see it.
I think we're going to see some situations where there's going to be a wildcat quarterback. We're going to see situations where the team has one quarterback for, like Miami. I mean, I've heard that Brown, the kid that is there, might want to leave. And Emory Williams already heard that leaves one other guy, and that's Tyler Van Dyke. And I've heard that he may not, like, who's quarterback. Those kind of situations are going to play out around the country. And if one guy gets hurt at any spot, it could be offensive tackle, whatever. You're right. 100%.
Well, let's look at Auburn here just for a second. We're about to hear from them next on the show, but there's a real possibility. Everybody's talked about, is Peyton going to leave? Peyton Thorne? Is Robbie Ashford going to leave? Is Holden Gerner going to leave? I don't think anybody would be shocked if all three of those guys leave. But if they leave before the bowl game, your quarterback is Hank Brown. Like that is a possible scenario here. Like, let's just think about that. And so I don't know. Will all three of them leave? I don't know. But I don't think if you look at it individually, like all of them make sense for different reasons. Do they all make sense to go at once? I don't know. Brian, how can people check out everything you've got going on, bud?
Auburn Daily, make sure you check that out. We're going to have a lot of recruiting stuff over the next couple of weeks, especially based on the Iron Bowl. I'm going to give some of my thoughts on what's going on there. And on Twitter, or X, if you will, at FBScout_Florida. This is fun, man. This is rivalry week. This is why college football is fun for guys all across the country, gals too. And check it out, man. This is going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, you're driving up this weekend to cover your first Iron Bowl. You'll be on the field for your first Iron Bowl. So that's gonna be
I'm
cool.
looking forward to it. I'm hoping to get some great shots there. Maybe you never know. In this game, man, anything.
There's no telling. Yeah, there's no telling what can happen. Yeah, that's right. All right, coming up, Auburn quarterback Hank Brown joins us to recap the disappointing loss to New Mexico State and preview his perspective on the Iron Bowl. That's coming up right here on Locked On Auburn. Today's show is brought to you by our friends at LinkedIn Jobs. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. They've got simple screening tools, like screening questions. They make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can hire quickly. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Joining us now here on Locked On Auburn, Auburn quarterback Hank Brown. Hank, I imagine this past weekend was one of the tougher game weekends, probably the toughest game weekend since you've been here.
No doubt. It was tough, very disappointing. Not much to say about it, but not what we wanted.
Yeah. As far as bouncing back, who have you seen early? We're recording this Monday morning, so there hasn't been a ton of time for folks to do this, but who's been kind of the leader to step up and say, okay, we've got to put this behind us. It's a huge week. We've got Alabama coming to town.
Yeah, I think some of the guys who have been here a while, and, some of the older guys like Luke Deal and, Jalen Simpson, they have kind of been like, okay, listen, obviously we didn't want that last week, but that's behind us. We have the biggest game of our season this week, and we need to get locked in on this week and use last week as motivation. So I'd say those two guys, as well as Peyton, just,
sure,
getting us, off of last week.
Right. What's your perspective, Hank, on the Iron Bowl? You grew up in Tennessee, so I'm sure you saw it from afar to some extent, but now that you're here, I'm sure it feels a little different. Kind of give us your perspective on the Iron Bowl.
No doubt. Yeah, I mean, growing up, obviously, I knew about the Iron Bowl and all the how it's the biggest rivalry in college football, and but I wasn't aware of how much goes into it and how much the people of Auburn really care. Because obviously I wasn't a part of it. And so growing up, obviously seeing all, Auburn's crazy wins, upsetting Alabama and whatnot. But
sure,
I didn't understand the how extreme it truly is. And now being here and just the hype building up to this game and how much people truly care. And not just fans, like our players, like you can tell, like it's truly something that's just unexplainable. Like I can't explain, how much they care about it. It's just something that is cool to see, and I'm very excited for this week.
Yeah, I'm sure you got a glimpse of it against Georgia week earlier in the season because a bunch of our guys are from Georgia, but even more from, from the state. And I mean, it dominates, Thanksgiving conversations, right? I mean, it gets families, a little extra juice of, aggressive conversation while they're eating turkey on the holiday. So, I mean, yeah, there's so much going into it. like I said, we're recording this early in the week, Hank, but can you already kind of tell a difference in focus and a difference in how folks are approaching this Saturday?
No doubt. You can just tell by the way people are kind of carrying themselves early on the week. It's more of, locked in this early in the week than people being, having fun, being more lackadaisical, just going through our Monday walkthrough and whatnot. You can tell people are more just, ready to go.
Yeah. Yeah. It's an Alabama team that's trending in the right direction too. No question about it. So I was talking to one of your teammates earlier today, Hank, and unsolicited, he was just talking about the quarterback room, compared you to Matt Stafford. What are your thoughts on that?
I could get with that.
That's pretty good. That's a pretty good thing.
Yeah, I like that. I've been compared to many different quarterbacks, but I feel like that one's pretty accurate. I feel like I have some similarities with him.
Yeah. Which one do you hear the most?
Man, I've heard so many different ones, but Coach Dilfer used to always compare me to either Jared Goff. He loved to compare me to Jared Goff, as well as Mac Jones. In high school, he said I was really similar to him. And there's been a ton of other ones, but those are the ones that he would compare me to.
That's cool.
Yeah,
that's cool. Yeah, I mean, I think any of those guys would be awesome for sure. For sure. So as far as Thanksgiving goes, what are the logistics for you? I mean, your home's a little too far away just to take a day trip there and back, I assume, Hank. What does that look like for you this week?
Yeah, so they give us 24 hours. So we have practice Thursday morning and then practice Friday afternoon. So we get Thursday afternoon and Friday morning off.
Yeah.
So people who live close are able to, head home and get to see their family. But with me living in Nashville, 4.5 hour drive is not gonna be worth it. Possibly, but that'd be a lot. So thankfully, I got someone on the team lives in Auburn, and he's having some of the guys over there.
Cool.
For Thanksgiving, so that'll be good. Be with the team and whatnot.
Yeah, sure, totally. Your favorite Thanksgiving side dish is what, Hank?
Man, I think I'm gonna have to go with mac and cheese. Just
so, Hank, I was so nervous to ask you this question because the last time I asked you about food, you talked up Mama G's, the soggy sandwich, and you just redeemed yourself. By saying mac and cheese. So congratulations. I think your food takes are back to 500.
Okay, good.
So bowl season is close, Hank, and this is when a lot of guys with those extra practices, typically practice focuses on a lot of the younger guys to prepare for the future. Is that on your radar at all, or is this kind of let's get there first?
That's definitely on my radar. That's something I've been looking forward to. Obviously, I love where I'm at, just being able to get a ton of reps and giving the defense the best look that I can. But I'm excited to really, I don't want to look ahead because obviously this week's incredibly big week for us, but sure. I'm excited to be able to get more developed and work more in the system and whatnot and grow. So I'm excited for that for sure.
Yeah. Is there something, assuming you get more reps and more opportunity during this bowl season, is there something you're looking to prove specifically, Hank, or is it more of just kind of getting your feet wet, running the offense and kind of just showing folks, hey, I can do this?
Yeah, I don't think there's anything in specific that I'm trying to prove to anyone. I think for the most part, people know. But as you were saying, I'm just trying to more get my feet wet, get more comfortable in it, and just, show people what I can do.
Sure. Hank, thank you so much for your time, man, and have a great Thanksgiving and have a very fun, hopefully, first Iron Bowl.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much to Brian and Hank for joining us. We will have a crossover show with Luke Robinson, host of Locked On Bama, tomorrow. So we will have a show on Thanksgiving. And on Friday, we'll preview the Iron Bowl with Jake Crane of Crane & Company. So yes, it's a holiday, but we will still have new editions of Locked On Auburn up for you. Thankful for all of you. Enjoy your Thanksgiving, and we will talk soon. This has been Locked On Auburn.